All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom radio network. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you'd like to listen to the X Zone 724-365, it's very simple, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Exonation, my guest this hour is Patrick White. He is with the Conspiracy Culture store in downtown Toronto, Ontario. And first of all, Patrick, welcome to the X Zone.
Rob, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine. Great to talk to you, Patrick. You're a bit of a legend in the Ontario area. I've spoken to so many people, and they always mention the conspiracy culture. Tell me, how did you get involved? You've had the store now, I believe, 10 years. You're 39 years of age. What's going on? What's your secret?
Yeah, we're in year 9 with the shop. We actually opened on a 888. We opened the store to the public on August 26, 2006. We figured if there was anything to numerology, why not go with the 888?
Exactly.
And here we are 9 years later. No business model for a conspiracy related bookstore. Mm-hmm. So everything was a bit of a learning curve. But as long as I can remember, I've been into everything that's been strange and bizarre and alternative. I had a older relative who used to subscribe to, I don't know if you remember Fate magazine.
Oh my gosh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a little Reader's Digest, but about all things UFO and paranormal.
Yeah.
So he used to read that. He had a subscription to that, and I would always hear bizarre stories. And as I got a little older, I'd start getting VHS tapes about Bigfoot and Bermuda Triangle and ghosts and aliens and whatnot. And as I got a little bit older, the tastes progressed and morphed into politics and ancient cultures and societies and whatnot. And, it sounds a little bit cliche, but for me, the big TSN turning point was 9/11, watching the events unfold that day.
My God,
that's what ultimately pushed me to take this up more than a hobby and a side interest and take it on as a full-time thing.
Why do you think in the year 2015 people are so interested in conspiracies?
I think in part because the lamestream media tends to put us to sleep with the absolutely contrived nonsense that they try to foist into our consciousness on a regular basis. I think that's probably one of the main steering factors. And two, it's because with the technology these days, it's so easily accessible for people to access and to send and share and exchange information that it's almost impossible to stop truth from coming out. And when people taste that and they realize just how magnificent and delicious it tastes compared to the garbage that the mainstream tries to throw at us, people want it. And that's kind of what happened to me. It's like I would spend all night looking into websites and listening to the late night radio programs. It's quite addictive.
But isn't it up to the person? You may call it mainstream garbage, but there are those who listen to mainstream when they hear about conspiracy theories. They say, "Oh, come on, these guys are wackos."
Sure, absolutely, and it's all up to the individual and to the individual's paradigm. None of us splooged out of our mother's uterus with a full-out understanding, and we've all kind of come into our own at our own time and awakened or have become aware of the truth, so to speak. So it's, you can appreciate how the majority of the population, their paradigm is parallel with that of the mainstream, but at the same time, I'll never go back. It's a tough thing to consider.
Based on your store and your clientele, what are the main conspiracies that people are talking about these days?
Oh, wow. These days, just most recently with the political, like speaking politically, the Bilderberg meeting just happened out in, what's that in Austria? Telfs, Austria, I believe. Yeah. So a lot of people are coming in and asking questions about Bilderberg Group and various different secret organizations and non-government organizations, with a lot of the talk about the vaccine controversies, the HPV vaccines and whatnot. We have a lot of young parents and new families. People are coming in interested in what they can do, what their alternative options are. Stuff to do with fracking. A lot of people are interested with what's going on with fracking, the things that have occurred since Fukushima, the dangers of radiation. Obviously, genetically modified organisms are a main concern these days. The economy is definitely a concern. Fiat currency, fractional reserve lending, the Federal Reserve. It's right across the board. I mean, our clients are they're coming in interested in everything and anything.
So here we are. You're downtown Toronto, and you're a bookstore. You're online, and you're surviving in an economy where some of the big guys are closing down.
Yeah, it's we had a lot of my close friends had told me that I was a bit crazy when I told them that I was interested in opening up a physical bookstore in 2006. But the thing to consider is that here in Canada, the majority of the bookstores and the book chains across the country, Indigo, Chapters, most recently the world's biggest bookstore, whatnot, they're all owned and operated by an individual named Heather Reisman, who, even on her website, on her bio, it states in the third paragraph, the last sentence, that she's also a member of the Bilderberg Steering Committee.
Whoa.
So when you walk throughout her bookstores and you see what material is strategically placed throughout the shop and what topics are completely absent, I mean, that in itself is a psychological operation. So we definitely cater to a niche demographic, but Toronto, it's the fourth largest market in North America, and there's definitely enough intelligent, critical, free-thinking individuals to help us stay afloat.
Why do you think that more and more people, they're coming forward and they're not afraid to ask these questions? Is it a sign of the times that people are just fed up with the same old, same old? They want to see some results. They're fed up with the lip service?
Sure, I think that's part of it. And I think what's happening is that more people are becoming aware of these problems because it's affecting more and more of us on a daily basis. And that's usually when the majority of people tend to take notice and become concerned is when there's a particular issue nipping them in the butt. And nowadays, it's hard for any of us to be completely free of any of these external variables that are continuously pecking at us. It's difficult.
I understand you have an interest in the paranormal yourself, and you've had some personal experiences. Can you share them with us?
Sure. Well, when I was 18 years old, I had to go in for hernia surgery. So I had decided to go to the Shouldice Clinic, which is located in Thornhill, Ontario.
Yeah.
And it's a world-known facility. People from all over the globe travel there to get their surgeries done. And on the same day that I was admitted, there was a big group of us. We all got admitted on the Tuesday, had our surgeries on the Wednesday morning. And on Wednesday night, when I was barely even able to cough without pain shooting through my entire abdomen, I see this older gentleman in the hospital garb. So he had obviously had a surgery, and he's walking back and forth through the hallway. And I'm thinking, how's this guy who looks like he's senior able to walk up and down the hallway, and I can't even sit up, I can't even clear my throat. So the next day I ended up, with some help, taking some grandpa steps around the hospital, ended up running into the guy, and I asked him, I said, hey, what's your deal? He says, well, I'm here from Guatemala, I'm a Reiki master, and I've basically been performing Reiki on myself, and that's what's expediting my healing, and it's allowing me to get up and do what I'm doing. And if you'd like, I can give you a demonstration. So, growing up with a relative who had subscribed to Fate magazine and hearing all sorts of interesting things, I was totally game. And my roommate was there, so I asked him to stay and just to watch and to observe to make sure no funny stuff was going on. And he told me to close my eyes, and he started doing his thing. And he goes, okay, I'm just going to see if you're sensitive to this. Where on your body right now do you feel something? I said, oh, easily my left shin. And my roommate started laughing. He's like, wow. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly where I'm doing this energy work. So he's like, okay, so I'll get to work. Did his thing for about 15, 20 minutes. And he's like, okay, you should feel good. Open your eyes. Tell me how you feel. And opened my eyes, and I couldn't stop the tears from coming out of my eyes. I felt like my spirit was completely detached from my physical, and it was as though I was almost looking down on my body, and I swear I could not feel my body. It was absolutely crazy. And he told me to get up, and I got up, and I was walking without any pain whatsoever. And, unfortunately at that time, I was still young and doing stupid things, and I was smoking at the time. So because I was completely perplexed and confused and overwhelmed, and I couldn't make sense of how I was feeling, I went outside and I had a cigarette to try to calm my nerves. And as soon as I inhaled that first drag of tobacco, the pain came shooting back, and my body started to hurt. I curled over. I had to get a nurse to bring a wheelchair out to bring me back in. And I passed him on my way back to the room, and he's like, what happened? I was like, oh, I had a cigarette, and the pain just came shooting back. And he said, what do you expect with all those toxins and chemicals and all that bad energy coming right back into your body? He's like, I'm tired. I'm not going to do that again for you, but hopefully it was an interesting experience for you. And, that was my first real first-hand account with something of the extraordinary and not of the ordinary. And most recently, my mother passed in 2011 from cancer. And the next visit, where I went to visit my father, and I was in their house, I was sitting in a spot where I was pretty much sitting with my mother for the 12 hours before she had passed. She passed in the basement, and we were all down there. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting in the chair, the exact chair that I was sitting in, and I got this overwhelming emotional feeling, like of joy, like I was seeing like a lost friend or a family. And all my hair just stood up, like goosebumps up my back. So I was like, I just decided, I was like, Mom, is that you? And the lights flickered twice as soon as I asked that question. And, I've been in that house, I don't know how many times over the years, and the lights never flicker. That was bizarre. So,
Next Door Nation, my guest this hour is Patrick WHYTE. He is the gentleman at the Conspiracy Culture It's on 1344 Bloor Street West in Toronto, Ontario. Their website is www.conspiracyculture.com. You're listening to The X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom radio network. Now, Patrick is going to be at the Alien Cosmic Expo that's being held in Brantford, Ontario, June 26, 27, and 28. And we hope to see you there. Now, if you can't get there because you live a little bit too far, like the United Kingdom, Australia. Let's see, we also had inquiries from Sweden, Greece, and where else, Craig? Scandinavia. People are interested. This event is raising a lot of eyebrows. So the organizers of the event, Joanne and Heather, they decided that they were going to have a pay-per-view for this entire event. The main speakers or the keynote speakers presentation in the Grand Ballroom at the Best Western in Brantford. If you want to get in on this great show, let me see just some of the speakers. Stent T. Friedman, Michael Horn, Paul Hellier, and the list goes on and on. All the information you'll need to watch live pay-per-view, www.digitalbroadcastnetwork.ca. What about UFOs? Do you think the government is covering up the truth when it comes to UFOs, Patrick?
There's definitely some level of a cover-up transpiring, without a doubt.
Why do you think the government has to cover up the fact that if they're here, they're here?
Well, considering society would probably collapse and there'd be riots if you were to tell them that they could no longer go to McDonald's, I think having to try to explain the reality of extraterrestrial life or life from other planets or our true origins or so on and so forth, I think that could shatter quite the many paradigms.
Have you seen a UFO yourself?
Actually, there was an occurrence maybe about 8 years ago when my wife and I were up north, just a little north of Barrie, a little south of Algonquin, and we were up watching the Perseid meteor shower. We go up north every year to watch.
Oh, that must be gorgeous.
And, it's beautiful. And there was this white, bright dot very high up in the sky that was moving around in a very squiggly kind of fashion, which stopped and then moved in a few straight lines, went back to the squiggly sort of motion, and then decided to go back to the straight lines, and then it disappeared. So it wasn't a satellite, because a satellite doesn't move around in those squiggly type of lines, and it definitely wasn't a plane, and it definitely wasn't any sort of usual craft.
Right.
And it was definitely too high in the sky for us to make out what it was other than just a bright light. But in terms of UFO experiences, that would be it for myself.
All right, Patrick, you and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Exonation, my guest this hour is Patrick White, and he's with Conspiracy Culture, 1344 Bloor Street West in Toronto. Their website is www.conspiracyculture.com. One more time, that's www.conspiracyculture.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this short commercial break as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom radio network. Don't go away.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com.
In the world today, most people want what is called the American dream. They want love, a family, a fancy car, and a nice home in a nice neighborhood. They also want a good job and money to travel to interesting places. Life is great because they have the American dream. But what happens to this dream if they hear they have a devastating illness like lung cancer? The doctor may tell them they need treatment immediately or they will be dead in 6 months. He tells them you need surgery and then you need chemotherapy to get better. When they get home, they think of many unanswered questions. They ask themselves, will I survive when so many of my friends with cancer have died? How will I deal with the pain, hair loss, nausea and vomiting, sore mouth and other side effects of chemotherapy and pain of surgery? Will I be able to keep on working? What will happen to my family? Then they look at the internet and wonder, is there a better way to deal with lung cancer and return to my American dream? Carl Helvey can tell you yes, there is a better way. Carl Helvey is a registered nurse with a doctorate in public health and a 38-year lung cancer survivor. Carl was given 6 months to live when diagnosed, and he refused chemotherapy and surgery. Carl used alternative interventions. Those not only helped him overcome lung cancer, but also to remain cancer-free and healthy for over the past 36 years since recovery. In his book, You Can Beat Cancer Using Alternative Integrative Interventions, Dr. Helvey will tell you his story of using all-natural treatments for lung cancer and continuing to work during his treatment. Free of pain and discomfort, Carl will also share how he remained cancer and disease-free since then without chronic illnesses or prescribed medications. His story is supplemented with chapters by Dr. Bernie Siegel, Dr. Francesco Contreras, and Dr. James Forsyth, alternative integrative physicians, and Dr. Kim Dalzell and Tanya Harder-Pierce, health professionals. All have successfully helped others overcome cancer. Research presented by the alternative physicians on their treatments for lung cancer demonstrate a significantly higher long-term survival rate for lung cancer clients than those obtained by conventional doctors. In addition, their clients were free of or had reduced side effects. You Can Beat Lung Cancer Using Alternative Integrative Interventions by Dr. Carl Helvey is now available at all major book outlets and at www.beatlungcancer.net. That's www.beatlungcancer.net. This information may help you return to the American dream.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Splenda, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X-Zone.
This is Psychic Dorothy from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Monday through Friday, you can listen to What Radio was meant to sound like. Starting at 9 until 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, my good friend Ed Till is at the helm of the Starcom radio network. And then, Monday through Friday, from 8 p.m. until midnight Eastern, yours truly comes to you live and around the world on the Starcom radio network. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Patrick White. A great store to visit if you're in Toronto. Visit his website. The name of the store is Conspiracy Culture. They're located at 1344 Bloor Street West in Toronto. And Patrick is going to be at the Alien Cosmic Expo, June 26, 27, 28. And I'm sure that Patrick would love to meet you and share about his experiences as well as his store. Now, what are you going to be doing at the Alien Cosmic Expo?
Well, we've got 3 tables, so we'll be vending there the entire weekend. I'll be bringing up a whole bunch of books and DVDs and T-shirts and health products and Tesla bobbleheads and all kinds of fun things.
A Tesla bobblehead? Wow.
Yeah, a.k.a. a Tesla earthquake detector, I like to call it.
That is wonderful. I understand your wife is in business with you as well.
Yes, my beautiful wife, Kadina, is my business partner, and she co-owns and helps operate the store with me.
That is fantastic. That is truly fantastic. I love to see that unity in a family when it comes to stores, because that's the way our economy used to be. Remember? Mom and dad shops, they were the thing, and it seems that over the years, big corporations kind of took over everything. But hey, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and I wish you all the best in the world. I understand you also understand you do events.
Yeah, we do all sorts of different things over the years. We've probably produced close to 100 different events. Everything from movie screenings to book signings, lectures, presentations, expos, conferences, you name it. If somebody's coming through town and we can do something, we'll do it.
You were mentioning that you also had health products. Where does that fit into a conspiracy culture?
Well, if you look at the big pharmaceutical industry and, you do some etymology and you look at pharmacist, pharmacy, pharmaceutical, and you look at how they're all derived from the Greek word pharmakeia, which translates loosely into sorcery or witchcraft. And you look at just the sheer control that the big pharma has over how individuals can essentially take care of themselves. And you look at, things like Codex Alimentarius and all these other various attempts to undermine and squash homeopathic and naturopathic remedies. So in terms of facilitating an individual's ability to choose products alternative to the toxic typical corporate stuff, we don't have a lot because we only sell products that we use.
Right.
We don't feel quite right about selling things that we don't have firsthand accounts for. And so it's only just a few select products. We sell some colloidal minerals, we sell some magnesium oil, we sell Rob's Into Gold, we sell some alternative toothpastes, we sell some orgonite, we sell different devices to help shield electromagnetic frequencies from your laptop and your cell phones, things like that. Not too much, but just enough. Just enough.
I understand you've got some new books that have just come in, and I was wondering if you could share them with our listeners.
Sure. There's, I'm always sourcing new products, so, there's at least one box of books coming in every week. And lately, some of the titles that stand out just off the top of my head would probably be, if you're familiar with John Keel of the Mothman fame, He's got this book just recently out called Operation Trojan Horse, the classic breakthrough study of UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Just fantastic book. That's been doing really well. Jim Mars, who's a New York Times bestselling author, he wrote Alien Agenda, Our Occulted History, Ruled by Secrecy, Crossfire, and a whole bunch of other books. He just came out with a new book called Population Control, How Corporate Owners Are Killing Us. And it's, I guess you could say, a soft look at eugenics, about 400 pages. And anything by Jim always sells well.
Yeah, we've had Jim on the show many times.
Yeah, Jim's great. We had Jim up last year to do a lecture for us at the Bloor Cinema, and we had about 600 people turn out for it. It was brilliant.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And very pleasant, very personable. Everybody loved him. Everybody went to the bar after the presentation was done, and we hung out for like 3 hours. It was great. And we're actually bringing Jim back on Saturday, October 3rd, to do a lecture/presentation on the information that's all sort of contained in this new book that he's just released. So that should be great. If you want to come out, I'll put some tickets aside for you.
Well, thank you very much. I'd appreciate that. So you've got everything that a conspiracy-minded person would need. It's a one-stop shop.
It is. It's a candy store for conspiracy theorists, conspiracy factualists, and conspiracy therapists. So if you like to think outside the box and get some real alternative perspective, it's definitely a place you should check out at least once.
That's what the world needs more of, thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's not too common these days. Everybody seems to gravitate towards whatever cultural trends are hot at the moment.
Because it's easier for them. They don't have to do any thinking. They just have to be sheep and follow.
Sure, and you know, when all the lemmings are plummeting off the cliff, it feels pretty good because you look around and you see all your friends.
And there's another way of looking at it. If you stay at the back before you go over, the chances of landing softly on a couple of 100 dead bodies break the fall. I understand that you've been in TV shows as well as films. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I've appeared in a few television shows over the years. One local program here, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serra, his television show. Mm-hmm. Also appeared in an episode, actually 2 episodes of Freak Encounters, which aired in the United States on the Animal Planet. Also appeared on Destination Fear, which aired on the Travel Channel in the United States. And was also in the episode of William Shatner's Weird or What. They had interviewed me about Charles Hall, about the tall grays.
Yeah, Charles has been on the show many times as well. I had the pleasure of meeting Charles and his wife. How many years ago was that? That must be about 8-9 years ago when we did the show live from Las Vegas. There was an alien exposition there. And Charles Hall was there, Jeff Belanger was there, Dennis Hout was there. Oh, the whole gang. And it was just, I was in my element. I was in my glories for 3 days. My wife spent most of the time in the casino, unfortunately. But, people say, Rob, you've been doing this for so long, isn't it old stuff? No way. You learn something new every day. You meet great people every day. You have the opportunity of letting your listeners hear these different points of view, because I know that for every guest we have on the show, somebody says, I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know if anyone else was saying it. And bang, this is what we're saying. Thinking outside of the box is so important these days. What is your catchphrase or your slogan for your store? You must have one.
Yeah, we do. It's quite simple. Please think responsibly. So it's sort of a take on the please drink responsibly. I like to tell people that, if you have a couple thoughts going around there, you can get a little bit excited. You fill your head with a few more thoughts. You can get a little bit too excited and get a little overwhelmed. So, just like having the bevies there, the spirits, you gotta maintain and please think responsibly. So stay grounded, stay focused.
Let's go back to September the 11th. Inside job, black flag operation, or was it an act of terrorism?
Well, by definition, it was definitely an act of terrorism. In terms of who was responsible for carrying out that particular act, I would say that the United States government, without a shadow of a doubt, had some level of complacency in the events that took place that day. It's it's when you just watch what happened and you remove the narrative and the echo chamber of the media, and you watch it with your own eyes, and you just, it's so contrary to what they tell us in terms of the maneuvers that the planes did, how these low-level pilots were able to pull off these maneuvers and fly these planes at certain Gs, and then of course there's the collapse of the towers, and then Tower 7, and then the whole BBC report where the woman had reported that the tower had collapsed like 10 minutes prior or whatever to the tower even collapsing. How the passports of the individuals were in like almost pristine condition and all the rubble. It's so ridiculous to try to digest all of that. And regardless as to how much sugar you want to put on it, it's Mary Poppins couldn't even get me to swallow that. It's too much.
How about the assassination of JFK?
Oh, brilliant. It's fantastic, the conspiracy there. There's so many potential groups and individuals that would have just absolutely loved to have John Fitzgerald Kennedy removed from the picture. So it's, it could have been one. It could have been all of them all at the same time. It's the numerology, the occult symbolism surrounding it. It's a very dark conspiracy for sure.
But isn't there a lot of occult geometry in the city of Washington itself?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The layers upon layers of sacred geometry incorporated into the streets. I think in the 1700s when they brought a French mason, Pierre L'Enfant, who they actually gave a plaza to in Washington called the L'Enfant Plaza. He was the individual responsible for creating the six-pointed star. There's also a Masonic compass and a right angle, and then I believe perched on top of the Washington Capitol, if you look at the pathways just at the top of that, it takes the shape of an owl perched on the Capitol. And there's a gentleman named David Ovison who's written a fantastic book called The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital. For anybody who's interested in that, they should definitely read it. And, oh, wow, it's unbelievable. And, 13 blocks up from the White House is Albert Pike's mausoleum, his tomb. It's, one of the most magnificent things you'll ever see in your life.
There certainly are a lot of conspiracies, and I guess the one that I'm most acquainted with is the JFK assassination, because I remember watching it and hearing it as a child. It was embedded, and then over the years I've had so many different guests on the show. In fact, the last guest I had on the show was Bonner Menninger, and he wrote the book that was entitled Mortal Error. And he in his book gives the evidence that he's been able to find using forensics that it was a member of the Secret Service that actually shot Kennedy by mistake. So you've got that, you've got the Lee Harvey Oswald, you've got the CIA connection, you've got Lyndon Johnson tied into it. Do you think that conspiracy or any other conspiracy will ever be put to rest once it's found one way or another?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, I'm sure over the next few years, now that we've past the 50-year anniversary, we'll see a lot of deathbed confessions and a lot of people coming forward, like Hunt at his deathbed. Who knows what we'll learn in the next few years? But you're right. I mean, it could have been anybody. The Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
He wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Could have been the military-industrial complex. He was heard stating that he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wanted this guy out of the picture.
Well,
and
go on. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then don't forget too, like what he knew in terms of some of the darker circles, his father, the connections with the mob,
exactly,
all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I was going to mention his father was no angel.
No, not at all, not at all. And all the stories about Marilyn Monroe and other women, and it's and then of course too, we've had Judith Vary Baker, who was Lee Harvey Oswald's ex-lover. We've had her up to Toronto twice in the last 4 years to discuss Lee Harvey Oswald and David Ferrie, and some of the things that she's mentioned over the years. It's quite compelling and very, very contrary to what we've been told over the years by the quote-unquote official story.
I'd like to ask you another conspiracy. I've had Bart Sibrel on the show many times, and he was the interviewer and the director-producer of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. And
he got punched out by Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, he got punched out by Buzz Aldrin. Edgar Mitchell kicked him in the ass on the way out of his house, and this Edgar Mitchell's son says to him, because he left a microphone in Edgar Mitchell's den where they were doing the interview, and he says, "Well, shall I call the CIA and have him whacked?" And
oh, geez,
yeah. So, do you think that America went to the moon, or do you think Bart Sibrel may have something there, that it was just a giant size publicity stunt?
Well, it's I mean, if you think about, I always try to put things into perspective,
right?
And again, that's what's always key. And I can go into a movie theater today, and I can spend $12, and for 2 hours, I can watch, Mordor open up and orc come at me, and all this stuff looks as real as the person sitting next to me.
It sure does.
And that's just entertainment.
Yeah.
So if hypothetically a government wanted to shift or steer public consciousness and have society subscribe to a particular notion that a particular event had happened and so on and so forth, with black budget technology and black budget money and the top scientists and the top filmmakers and who knows whatever else is going on out there, you're telling me that these guys couldn't put something out that could dupe the general masses into thinking that they were on another planet?
Easily.
It's so plausible. It's so plausible. And then, of course, you've got Jay Weidner, who put out the film series Kubrick's Odyssey, about how Stanley Kubrick could have potentially filmed the whole thing in a movie studio.
Well, look at that movie, Capricorn 1.
Absolutely, which is so hard to find these days. I can never find a copy of that movie.
I've got a copy if you'd like it.
No, you should hang on to it. It's great.
Oh, yeah, well, if you want it, I'll be glad to give it to you.
Sure, bring it to Ace. I'll watch it and then I'll mail it back to you.
There you go. That's great. So we've got so many conspiracies. The part about the moon, that the lunar conspiracy, that always got me. Russia when you look at what was happening back then, you had Russia putting a big dent in the industrial and space efforts of the United States. They put the first Sputnik up. They had the first man in space, the first women in space. They actually had a robot go to the moon and come back. Like, that was a big kick in the teeth for the United States. So in order,
it could have easily been a publicity stunt, without a question of, for sure, absolutely.
Another question for you. New World Order, the cabal. Is there, in your opinion, based on what you do, the people you talk to, is there a government behind the government? The government that you and I see, except Duffy, are they the real government, or are these the actors that are put there on stage while the puppet masters actually pull the strings?
Well, the politicians are, in my own personal opinion, just marionettes that are pulled violently about in whichever direction they're needed to go by various different individuals and organizations which wield way more power than these, Justin Trudeau's and Stephen Harper's and Barack Hussein Obama's. Yeah. These are just front men.
Donald Trump running for president. What do you think? Does he have a chance?
Oh, I think the circus is looking quite fabulous this year. You've got a Jeb Bush.
Oh yeah,
and Hillary Clinton.
Clinton.
Now you've got Mr. Trumpy there in the mix. It's you can't lose, right? You can't lose.
It's going to be good entertainment for television, even up here in Canada. Come on, And I was watching the news conference yesterday when Trump announced his bid for president. He said, "I don't need a campaign manager. I don't need a lobbyist. I'm rich. I can pay for everything myself." And he said, he wants to. He says, "Put me as president. I'll crush ISIS. We'll bomb all the oil fields, crunch up, get them where it hurts in their pocket, in the oil, cut our oil off, and they've got no more funding." And I'm saying, holy crap! And then he badmouthed President Obama. Well, that's not hard to do, but you know what I mean? Like, if anything, he is putting a breath of fresh air into a real dull arena.
Yeah, and that might just be the whole trick of the whole politics. It's just he's got this different aesthetic. He's got this different appearance. It was similar to Obama after all those years of Bushes and Clintons and Clintons and Bushes and Bushes and Clintons. Here comes this guy with this swagger. He's all articulate, different aesthetic. It was almost like a no-brainer,
Yeah.
So if the two only options are a Bush and a Clinton this time around, I mean, come on.
Oh,
if this doesn't show the American populace and even just the global populace at how much of a joke the whole idea of a democratic system really is, it's like, I don't even know.
My producer was just telling me that Donald Trump wants Oprah Winfrey to be his running mate.
Oh, my goodness.
Are you serious, Craig? Yeah, he's serious.
Well, maybe they'll get Dr. Oz on as the Minister of Defense or something.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be interesting. The unfortunate part is whatever happens down there affects us up here.
Yeah, we're attached at the hip, so it's you definitely feel the ripple effects. That's for sure.
What was the talk in the conspiracy group when it comes to the North American Union? Remember when that was a real hot topic? Mexico, Canada, the United States joining into one union like they have in Europe?
Sure, and there was all this mention of a singular currency, which had apparently already been named and was trickling out into circulation at the time, called the Amero, which, to this day I've yet to see any of those coins or any of that particular currency. But it's like everything else. It's everything gets assimilated and consolidated, and the big corporations buy everything up, and same with governments. They're easier to control when it's all consolidated into one singular body, and I don't think we're that far off. Especially here in North America. If for say the North American the American economy takes a dump, which it's not that far off from doing, it will. I mean, look at the Canadian dollar already. It'll have a significant impact on us.
Yeah.
So, the whole Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution, I mean, they'll probably already have a solution waiting in the wings, and that could potentially be a new currency which will bring all the economies up to par and so on and so forth. So the potential is real, very real, but to try to put a timeline on it, I really hate doing that because it's, I don't know. It's whenever they deem it necessary, that's when these guys will do it, because nothing is by chance and happenstance. It's all very calculated. It gets done when it needs to get done.
What about the new Bitcoin? Any talk about that?
Yeah, the cryptocurrency. It's tough. There's a lot of people who speculate that this is sort of like an initial beta test to see how society reacts to, I guess, taking one step closer to digital currency and moving away from cash, like the physical cash.
Right.
So it's, I don't know, and then there's all sorts of weird things that have already happened that have, showed that it's not free from problems, the whole Mt. Gox, the exchange, and the Bitcoins being used for the dark deep web and the Silk Roads and all these different things. So it's people are definitely curious, and again, it's just a very small, I guess, percentage of the population that's even got the mental capacity and wherewithal to really understand how you can even create these Bitcoins and use them and so on and so forth. So it's still very new, but people are definitely watching it and paying attention.
Yeah. My last question to you is, what about people being microchipped?
Ooh, Catherine Albrecht has a fantastic book called Spy Chips. Very real. The whole radio frequency identification chips is very real. The passive chips are in almost all the products these days. They've been putting it in the pets for years. And, in the military, various countries have been putting them in the military. There's a nightclub, I believe, in Spain that, if you want to be a VIP, you can get administered and outfitted with a chip.
They also have two clubs like that in Miami.
Yeah, so, it's and the whole idea of this whole transhumanism and merging robotics and technology with the whole human experience is becoming more culturally and socially acceptable through predictive programming and various different media tactics.
Isn't that referred to as the 2045 initiative?
Yeah, where they ultimately plan to have consciousness merge with machine. Ray Kurzweil and a few other of the big brains out there that are into the artificial intelligence are sort of spearheading and behind that project. And if we're seeing this stuff now as just end consumers, the average Joe Blow, we're seeing this stuff, I can guarantee you the technology that they're working on with MIT and Boston Dynamics and DARPA, the stuff behind the curtain.
Right.
I mean, your eyes would roll into the back of your head like a great white shark about to bite into a burr seal. Like you wouldn't even recognize it because it would be so outside of the paradigm.
Outside
2045 is... Sorry?
I was just going to say outside of the realm of reality for most people, but for people like you and myself, it's real. It is plausible. If not, it's already here. We just don't know it's here yet.
Oh, I guarantee the technology is already here. It's just a matter of finding a way to slowly, incrementally inject it into the public consciousness so that firstly, people accept it, and secondly, embrace it, and then thirdly, want to spend their money on it, I guess. So it's a very precise process in which this will figure its way out into humanity. But, the whole thank you, Skynet, our overlord masters are here kind of deal, that's very real, very, very, very real. And if you think about some of the technologies that we saw in Star Trek back in the early days, with the flip phones and the communication devices and the healing beds, which are very real nowadays, magnetic therapies. I mean, the stuff that they're showing today to the kids now, which would have been us watching the Star Trek, I mean, to think that that's what they're conditioning that generation for, so that by the time they're my age, that's what's going to be normal for them in society, that takes my brain and just throws it for a loop. An absolute loop.
Hey, Patrick, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you tonight. I'd love to do this again sometime. You're a very interesting young man. I wish you much success, and I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, June 26, 27, and 28. So thanks very much for sharing your time, and please give my very best to Kadena.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Rob, and much love and good vibes to the X-Zone Nation out there.
All right, my friend, take care of yourself. X-Zone Nation, Patrick White has been my guest this hour. The name of the store is Conspiracy Culture. It's located at 1344 Bloor Street West in Toronto, Ontario. Keep your eye on his website because he does events, movie premieres, and a lot of other neat stuff. Once again, his website, www.conspiracyculture.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as Howard Bloom joins me to talk about the Bloom Report. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And where? It's very simple. Around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of ratings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598.